Part 1. The Journey to Castle Dracula. In the year 1897, a young English lawyer named Jonathan Harker traveled across Europe on an important business mission. He was a hard-working man, and he believed that his journey would be simple. His task was to visit a mysterious nobleman named Count Dracula, who lived in a distant castle in the mountains of Transylvania. Jonathan carried many documents with him. The Count wanted to buy a large house in London, and Jonathan was sent to help complete the legal arrangements. At first, Jonathan was excited. He wrote in his journal, "My journey is beginning. I hope this will be a successful business trip and that I will soon return home." However, as Jonathan traveled farther east, he began to notice strange things. The people in the villages looked worried when they heard the name Dracula. Some people made signs of protection with their hands. Others whispered prayers. Jonathan did not understand their fear. One evening, before he continued his journey to the castle, an old woman approached him. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I am traveling to Castle Dracula," Jonathan replied. The woman's face became pale. "No," she said. "You must not go there." Jonathan smiled politely. "I have important work to do. I must meet the Count." The woman took a small cross from her neck and gave it to him. "Take this, you may need it." Jonathan thanked her, but he still did not believe there was anything to fear. The next day, he continued his journey. The road became darker and more dangerous. The mountains grew taller and thick forests surrounded him. The driver of the carriage moved quickly through the narrow roads. The sky became cloudy and a cold wind began to blow. As night arrived, Jonathan looked outside the window. The landscape was beautiful, but it also felt mysterious. Suddenly, the horses stopped. Jonathan looked outside. A strange carriage was waiting on the road. The driver was a tall man wearing a long black coat. His face was hidden by the darkness. "Are you Jonathan Harker?" the man asked. "Yes," Jonathan answered. "I have come to take you to the castle." Jonathan entered the carriage. The journey continued through the dark forest. The driver moved with incredible speed. Jonathan noticed something unusual. The man never seemed tired. The horses ran for hours, but the driver remained completely calm. Around midnight, they arrived at a large stone castle. Castle Dracula stood alone on the top of a mountain. Its walls were old and covered with shadows. There were no lights in the windows. No voices could be heard. The carriage stopped. Jonathan stepped down and looked at the enormous entrance. The door opened slowly. Standing there was Count Dracula. The Count was an old man with a white mustache and a very unusual appearance. His eyes were bright and powerful. His skin was extremely pale. "Welcome to my home," Dracula said. "I am Count Dracula." Jonathan entered the castle. The Count shook his hand. Jonathan was surprised by the strength of his grip. It felt like the hand of someone much younger and stronger. Inside the castle, everything was beautiful but strange. The rooms were large. The furniture was old. The halls were silent. There were no servants anywhere. Jonathan wondered, how can someone live in such a large castle alone? That night, Dracula prepared dinner for his guest. They talked for many hours. The Count asked many questions about England. He wanted to know about London, its streets, its people, and its buildings. Jonathan explained everything. The Count listened carefully. "I have studied England for a long time," Dracula said. "I want to understand your country before I move there." Jonathan was impressed. The Count seemed intelligent and educated, but there was something about him that made Jonathan uncomfortable. The next morning, Jonathan woke up and discovered something strange. The Count was not there. He searched the castle but could not find him. There were no servants, no guards, no other people, only Jonathan and the mysterious castle. Days passed. Jonathan continued his work, preparing the documents for Dracula's move to England. But he began noticing strange things. The castle had many locked doors. The Count appeared only at night. Jonathan never saw him eating. He never saw him sleeping. One evening, Jonathan looked through a window and saw something impossible. The Count was climbing down the outside wall of the castle. He moved like a creature without fear. Slowly, he walked down the stone wall like a spider. Jonathan froze. He could not believe his eyes. "What kind of man is this?" he whispered. For the first time, Jonathan felt real fear. He remembered the warnings from the villagers. He remembered the old woman's words. "You may need this." He touched the small cross around his neck. Jonathan now understood that Castle Dracula was not a normal place, and Count Dracula was not a normal man. The young lawyer wanted to leave, but the castle was surrounded by mountains and forests. The doors were locked. There was no way to escape. Jonathan Harker was a prisoner inside Castle Dracula. And his terrifying journey had only begun.